So, beginning of Black History Month, we're going to start out with one of my favorite Black content creators, MKBHD, because he's got a new toy. He got the new Apple Vision Pro. And let me tell you, off rip, I don't think this is going to be very good, but we'll see. See, shit like this is when I really wish that like I could stream daily. Like if I could stream daily, this is stuff I want to cover like right when it's coming out. But you know, whatever. We got this. We got this.
All right. So you've seen the unboxing. Now it's time
No,
for the
we didn't
breakdown.
see the unboxing.
What is using the Apple Vision Pro actually like? This is easily one
God,
of
his editing is
Apple's
so good, too.
craziest, most radical, possibly dystopian products of all time, and I have
Yes.
a lot of thoughts here. Like I've been using it for about a week now.
I
There are some parts of this thing that are absolutely incredible,
should.
and some other parts that feel weird or borderline unfinished. There are all
Oh,
kinds
shit,
of
hold
new
on.
technologies, from a new operating system to infrared
I want to pause it right there already off rip that this is one of Apple's borderline most dystopian things that they've released. I cannot agree with that more. Like I'm a tech nerd. I'm a big tech nerd. I'm a big tech fan. I'm a guy that's all about, you know, bleeding edge technology, all the coolest new little toys. You know, I am somebody who most certainly feeds into that. But this is starting to make me feel weird. You know what I mean? This right here is just starting to make me feel weird, and the way that they're trying to push it, if that makes sense. Like I have nothing against VR or AR, like that's cool, but like the way they're trying to let's continue. Let's continue. I'll rant throughout this, trust me.
a lot of thoughts here. Like I've been using it for about a week now. There are some parts of this thing that are absolutely incredible, and some other parts that feel weird or
Where does he
borderline
get these
unfinished.
wonderful toys?
There are all kinds of new technologies, from a new operating system to infrared
My guess
eye
is Apple.
tracking
No.
to virtually reconstructed versions of you. I feel like there are so many actually new things that you have to understand.
That doesn't surprise
in order
me,
to get a
Shug.
sense of what this
They
headset
quietly
actually is
bought
and
up.
what
Well, I mean, it was a
does.
little bit in the
I'm gonna break
tech
this down into
media,
2 parts.
but they bought up
This
one of my
video
favorite
is
fucking
all
weather apps
about
that I used for
using the
years,
Vision Pro. It's
and then
everything
made it
I've learned from the
exclusive to
past
fucking
week of
iOS.
wearing and getting used to this thing.
It was an
every
awesome
single
weather
day.
app. It was called Dark
But I'm also
Sky.
working on a more
And now Apple Weather is
wide-ranging,
is
possibly more
using Dark Sky.
existential review video. But let's
It's
just
very
start with
annoying.
the more
It was very cool, very cool. Unfortunately,
like,
Apple
what
bought that up.
is this thing that I'm holding? Literally, Apple Vision
Like
Pro.
I paid
at
a
its
subscription
core,
for that.
well, it is a
It wasn't
VR
expensive.
headset.
I think it was
Now,
like $10
Apple would never
for
say that,
like
and they
a
probably
year
won't
or
like that I'm
something.
saying that word. You know, I made an entire video about why they refuse to use those words, and they're calling it spatial computing instead. We'll get there. But the truth is, it's a really.
Wait, what did he say?
Really,
Hold on.
really-
I'm sitting here ranting about my weather app.
But let's just start with the more hardware fundamentals, right? Like,
Okay.
what is this thing that I'm holding? Literally, Apple
an
Vision
AR
Pro,
headset.
at its core.
It's an AR headset.
Well, it is a
I know Apple likes to rebrand everything for themselves and call it whatever they want to call it, but this is an AR headset. I wouldn't necessarily, well, yeah, I would call it AR because it's got the pass through and like environmental kind of thing going on to where it modifies the environment you're in, although you can turn it down and have it black everything out to where it's all just screen. But like, yeah, I would definitely call this an AR headset as opposed to something like an HTC Vive or an Oculus, which are just straight up VR headsets. It's switchable, right? Yeah.
a VR headset. Now, Apple would never say that, and they probably won't like that I'm saying that word. You know, I made an entire video about why they refuse to use those words, and they're calling it spatial computing instead.
There it
We'll
is.
get
There's
there.
the
But
Apple
the truth
part.
is, it's
Spatial
a really,
computing.
really,
There's the
really
Apple part.
high-end virtual reality headset. It's something we've seen before,
Yeah.
right? It's got
High-end VR
displays
AR
and
headset.
lenses and speakers and fans and buttons, and this is a form factor. This is a thing that we have seen before. But before I even turn this thing on, there are clearly several things that are a little different about this one. So first of all, it's made of metal. Lots of metal and
That's a problem off jump. I don't know if you guys have ever used VR before. I have a VR headset. I don't have one of the fancy ones. It's one of the ones from, you know, like I was saying earlier, like I'm really into tech, obviously. and being on like the bleeding edge and shit like that when I can afford it, obviously. But I have a Samsung Gear VR headset, one that you would put your phone into, like years and years and years ago. I got it like right when it first came out and shit. And the first problem with this Apple headset that I feel like other VR headsets have already solved. One, being made of metal is gonna make that thing fucking heavy. It's gonna be heavy, and it's like you don't think about it when you're just moving your head around because it's natural, right? You're naturally moving your head around. But having a VR headset, weight distribution is very important. And having a lot of metal on the front of your face like that is not only gonna like feel cumbersome, but it's also going to add to like VR face. And if you don't know what VR face is, it's basically when you start getting indentations and lines and like you start to get a little flush if you're white. You start to get a little flush around the lines and seams where that blood is kind of like, you know, and it's just a constant like impression on the front of your face. And it takes a while, like it's not there forever. It goes away. But I mean, it's gonna add to that having all that weight. At the same time, it looks like there's no counterbalance to the weight in the back. So all of that weight is gonna be on the front of your face. The HTC Vive, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the Vive, yeah. The Vive kind of counterbalances that by putting a little weight in the back so that it's not all concentrated on the front of your face, on the bridge of your nose. You know, you can kind of like, it feels a little more natural. I do have a friend with a Vive. I've used a Vive. I've used PlayStation VR. Like, I've used a good amount of VR.
Seen before. But before I even turn this thing on, there
Yeah,
are
this right here. This is an HTC Vive right here. Also, this is a problem right here. This is a problem with all VR headsets. VR headsets not being wireless is a fucking problem. VR headsets need to be wireless.
clearly several things that are a little different about this one. So first of all, it's made of metal. Lots of metal and glass here, which are high quality but heavy materials,
What
relatively
did I just
speaking.
say?
So there's this precisely machined aluminum frame around the outside. And yes, those are intakes for fans at the bottom and then vents for those fans at the top. On the right side, there's your digital crown that can be pressed in or turned. And then on the other side is just a single larger button. So kind of basically the same two buttons as an Apple Watch. And then when you get a little further back on this band here, these little pods with downward facing grills, these are speakers, which are pointed straight at your ears and work surprisingly well. Though, of course, it also means that people around you can hear a little bit of what you're hearing. There's a little bit of bleed. And I have a lot to say about spatial
That
audio, so
that
stay tuned for
sucks.
that. But
I
the
don't
main
like
event
that.
is at the front. There's an enormous piece of glass, which, yes, is very easy to fingerprint and smudge. And then behind that thing, there's this outward facing OLED display and a bunch of sensors all the way around, outside facing sensors that go forward, sideways, and straight down. There's depth sensors, infrared illuminators, LiDAR scanners, and just regular old RGB cameras, all being processed by an M2 chip and an R1 chip inside this thing. And then maybe the craziest part, inside the headset, there are a bunch more sensors facing your eyes, tracking your
Have
eyes
you
in
guys
real
used
time for all the eye
VR or
control and
AR
everything that
before?
comes with that. And also then to display a representation of your eyes on the outside of the headset, kinda.
Okay, this is weird. I want to see how this is going to work because even though I'm not an Apple fan, I'm a tech nerd. So like I watch the Apple keynotes and stuff like that. I watch the Samsung keynotes, Google I/O every year. Like I watch these things. And one of their big selling point things was that it's going to show your face on a screen outside to make it look like you're not kind of
We'll
wearing
get
it,
there.
to
But
make it look
overall, when you put it all
transparent, I
together,
guess, but it's
you
not.
get a very well made,
Well, it's
very
obviously
high
not.
end,
It can't be.
but also pretty heavy computer to wear on your face. So officially, this headset with this solo knit band, when I weighed it, showed up as 638 grams, which some of you on Twitter have
Oh,
already
you're talking
pointed
about
out
a
is
Google
actually
Cardboard?
slightly
I
less
haven't
than the
tried Google
plastic
Cardboard.
MetaQuest Pro.
It was a
But
cool
that Quest Pro
idea.
also has a lot of battery
You
on the
can
back of your head.
This
as
is
a sort of a
exactly what I was talking
counterbalance. So
about
the
right
weight
here.
distribution is very different. Also, the Quest Pro is not that comfortable anyway. But the point is, this, for Apple, made the choice of taking the battery off of the headset.
That's
which
already
means,
annoying
okay,
to me.
now there's nothing on the back of your
That's
head, so
already
you can wear it
cumbersome.
and lean up against things, and that might be an upside, but that also now means you have to deal with this cable all the time running up to your head. And the the fact that it's very front weighted now. All of the weight is on the front of your face. So this is the battery, as you saw in the unboxing. If you haven't already seen the unboxing, that just went up. I'll link it below the like button. But this battery is a surprisingly small 3,366 milliamp hours. I say surprisingly small because a normal battery bank of this size, you might expect to be 10, 15,
Yes.
20,000 milliamp hours. I suspect there's a lot of heat insulation happening
I was
here,
gonna say,
but it
my
comes with
phone
a
is almost
non-removable
4,000
4-foot cable
milliamps, I think.
and a proprietary connector at the end of the cable
That is a
will twist and lock
big-ass
to the
battery.
headset. And so the lock is really solid. It makes sense that it's not just straight
I don't mean
USB
big
that
as
could
in
get
like charge
disconnected
capacity.
easily.
It's
Once you
big and
connect
clunky.
it starts glowing, and then it starts booting up, and there's even a little Apple logo that displays on the outside screen while it takes, you know, a little under a minute to turn on. So there is no on or off button or switch anywhere on this headset, maybe kind of like AirPods Max or something like that. So if you ever take the headset off and put it down, it will enter a standby mode after some time, but it won't turn off. If you want to turn it off, you literally have to
Yeah,
twist
Shug.
and unplug the cable. That's the only way to actually turn the headset off. Now, famously already, the battery life with this included battery is not super long on this headset. 2 to 4 hours is actually realistic for what you can expect for just like this built-in battery. But that's also kind of right in line with a lot of other VR headsets. Battery life on VR headsets is not that great in general. If you do want to use it longer, the only way to do that is there's a USB-C port on the battery, and you have to plug the battery in. So you could plug the battery into the wall for infinite battery life, or I guess you could plug it into like you could daisy chain another battery into the other pocket or something for even longer
No.
life. But yeah, 2 to 4 hours. Now,
Stop.
at first, it seemed weird to me that the
Stop.
port is on the same side of the battery as the non-removable cable, but I think it's because they just want you to default to putting this battery like in your pocket, probably in your back pocket. So even if it's plugged into the wall, it can still be in your back pocket. You're just gonna wanna get a longer USB-C cable. So there are no controllers that come with this headset. Now it does support other input methods that are like game
Okay, this
controllers
I'm
and
interested
mouse
in
and
seeing.
keyboard, and
I wanna
those
see
can be
how this
incredibly
works.
useful. But by default, the primary input method
It's
for everyone
gestures,
using
right?
the Vision Pro is your eyes and your hands. So the
Gestures,
first time
yeah.
you put on this headset, it goes through this calibration process, and it's pretty interesting. So the first time you ever put it on, it first adjusts the distance between the lenses, physically moving them inside the headset to match the distance between your eyes.
Oh,
Then
that's
it
cool.
does a sort of a
Okay.
hand scan so it understands your hands. And then you go through this process of basically looking at a bunch of dots all the way around the screen and then tapping your fingers together to select them. Kind of feels like an eye test or something. And then you're in. So first thing you're gonna notice is you can actually kind of put your hands anywhere as long as the headset can see this. Just your fingers touching together. So there's a lot of pictures of people like using a headset with their fingers like out in front of them, pinching like that. But you actually don't have to do that. It's such a wide angle because of the sensors facing forward and sideways and down. You can kind of just rest your hand anywhere in front of you in your lap. As long as you pinch like that, it can generally pick it up, which is
Okay.
impressive. So you're pinching to
That's
control
actually
anywhere in
cool.
that 180 degree
That's
bubble
very
in front of
cool.
you. And then the digital crown, you hit that once and the app drawer comes up. Pretty simple. Doesn't seem that impressive, but this is actually a peek at the first really impressive thing about this headset
Looks
to me,
like a Vive.
which is it seems to have incredible spatial positioning lock. And like it's really hard to show like have you appreciate this through a YouTube video. Reviewing VR headsets is hard, but like
Yeah.
turn around in the room you're in and like picture
Showing VR in a
wall or
video
window
is damn near
just
impossible.
appearing
It's
locked
a
in
it's a
place
totally different
in 3D
experience
space
when
in
you're
your room.
actually using it
And no
it's on
matter
your
how much you
face.
move your head or move around, it stays exactly kind of floating.
And
where
it's very
supposed to
cool.
be.
Don't
But
get me
when I say
wrong.
floating, I think
I
you're
just do- I
picturing,
think
like,
we're
a
not. I
soft
don't think we're
float,
quite
but
there
it's
yet.
locked, and that's how it starts. So now you're in Apple's new Vision OS. I would describe this as kind of similar to iPad OS, but way more glassy.
Oh, that got a little
and, like,
laggy.
of course, with the extra dimension of 3D space. So
That's not
hitting the
something I would
digital crown
expect
will
from
always
Apple.
get the app drawer back in front of you.
The app
And
drawer looked
then
a little
simply
laggy there.
look at the icon you want and pinch your fingers together to select it and open that app. Scrolling is basically as you'd expect. You just kind of pinch and grab in the air and then pull as if it's on a
That's
string,
cool.
and physics let you pull things through the air. It's pretty intuitive, it's responsive, it's fluid. Sometimes it's kind of bouncy even. I would say the biggest adjustment is only being able to control exactly what you're looking at. And I don't think people realize how often they're controlling things that they're not exactly looking directly at with other computers and other UIs. But with this, you can look at the button to select it. And if you look at the next thing you're going to do, you're no longer controlling the button. You have to look exactly where you're trying
Ooh.
to interact with things. It takes a few extra brain cycles to remember to always be looking exactly at the thing you're controlling. So when you open a window
Okay.
of a Vision
I could
OS
see
app,
that being a
like any one
problem.
of the default Apple apps here, it locks into place.
Because
It's
I don't think
floating there.
people
It kind of
realize,
looks
like he was
again like an
saying,
iPad app, but very
I don't think
glassy.
people
Like this
realize
frosted
how
glass around the
often your
UI
eyes are
sort of lets you see
constantly
through a little
moving.
bit to the color behind it. And it
So
even
if you need to be
sometimes
looking at
casts a
that
shadow on the
thing,
ground in the correct Z
then
space.
I
So
could
it
see
really
how that could be a
solidifies
problem.
that it's floating in front of you. All of this makes it feel like the window is in the space around you. Then, if you look at the bottom of the window, you get a little bar. You can always just look at that bar and pinch to drag it around. So drag it forward, backward, anywhere you want in X, Y, and Z space, and
That's
then
pretty
let go, and
cool.
it just stays absolutely locked. And then you can look at either bottom corner to resize to make it bigger or smaller. And then finally, there's a little X at the bottom. You select that, that closes it. So that is the basics of Vision OS and just using an app. Now, this entire time, by default, and almost anytime they can, pass through is on, which means you have the headset on, but you can see with the cameras right through to everything around you. And I think this is where Apple really wants to normalize
But
the
what is the
term
frame rate
spatial
like?
computing because it feels like
Because in
augmented
VR,
reality.
frame
It
rate is
feels like you're always able to
very
see the
important,
space around you. But
especially
technically,
for
it's not
like people
actually
who
AR
get
because
motion
you are
sick.
still looking at a
I don't get motion
reconstructed
sick in
version
my
through a camera feed of the
experience,
world
but
around you instead of the
some
actual
people
world
do.
around you. But
And a
maybe
lot
it's
of
all
that
just
has to do with
semantics. I
frame
will
rate, if I'm
say
not
this is the
mistaken.
best pass through of any VR headset I have ever used, and it's not even that close. Now, again, it's so hard to get
Best
this
pass
through
through,
a
huh?
YouTube
Okay.
video. It does have screen recording built in, so I'm going to try to use that. But imagine putting a headset on and not really feeling like you're looking at a screen with the real world because of the pixel density, because of the 90 hertz refresh rate, and because of
Okay,
the
90
impressive
hertz.
dynamic
Okay.
range of the cameras and the correctly adjusting shutter speed. You just almost don't. You almost just feel like you're looking at the real world, not through a headset. Also, the pass through is so close to real time that I could legitimately interact with all kinds of things. I could catch items flying at me. I even tried playing
Okay.
ping pong. It was easy, no hesitation. So officially, the R1 chip is
Oh,
doing all the processing of all this stuff and adjusting the
that
shutter speed
could
for different lighting
be
conditions and
just the
always keeping
video
pass-through latency
processing or the
under
recording
12
itself, but that
milliseconds,
frame
which
rate
is
does
the
not look
lowest in the
great.
industry.
I would
But it's
hate
really
that.
combining that with how close to reality the colors and brightness and everything are that keeps it feeling kind of real.
Try dodging a
Basically, the
wrench.
only noticeable restriction is super close-up items and objects can get a bit blurry, and then you can't quite make out like really small or fine text, so you can't like read an email or tiny text on your phone in your hand, but you can absolutely text people or read your notifications while keeping the headset on. If you've tried other VR headsets, you know how impressive that is. It's
Yeah,
really good
that's
with
really
the
good.
tech that exists now for VR, and it will slowly dial your environment
Oh,
more
that's
and more
cool.
into your field of view until you dial it all the way up to fully surrounding you. So all of the windows you might have had open will still stay stuck where they were, but everything you're doing
Oh, that's
is
very
just
cool.
on the moon now. So yeah, there's a couple environments Apple has built in
Oh,
here. Most of them relaxing scenic locations like in California somewhere, or one really nice one is Mount Hood with a little bit of rain falling. They're not quite photorealistic, but they're just short of photorealistic. Like they're the most realistic digital environments that I've seen. So then the last
yeah.
two big quirks of the UI. Control Center. So the only way to get to Control Center is to look up, like, and you can't just look up, but you have to physically turn your head up and look at this arrow that appears above you. So once you see that, you select that, and then you get your Control Center for things like, battery life and notifications, focus modes, and screen
Hey, what's
recording,
going on, Lily?
and
Welcome
pairing
in,
to a
welcome in. What's
Mac.
good,
But the
girl?
other big quirk is text input.
We're checking out
So
this
you might
new
be wondering, how does text
Apple
input work
VR
with
AR
no
headset.
physical controllers? So there's basically three ways to do this. So let's say you're
That's a
in
good
Safari and
question.
you want to go to
How is text input going to
incubehd.com.
work?
You really want one of those shiny new Chevron hoodies for the rest of winter. Great. How do you do it? So the first way
If you
is
have
to
to look to
literally
type, that's
hunt
going
and
to be
peck,
a
poking the keys on the keyboard that appears in the air in front of you. So this one is tough because
no.
it literally only reacts to your pointer finger on each hand. So you actually can't type fast like with home row or anything like
Oh,
that. Not great. The second way, though, I think is actually kind of good. It's at least faster, which is looking at the key you want to interact with and then pinching to select it. So just looking around the keyboard like this and selecting the keys. And you might be surprised how fast you can type like this if you actually know your way around a keyboard pretty well. I actually prefer this to poking the virtual keys because I at least get a little bit of haptic feedback from my own fingers tapping together. But then in Safari, the last way to do it is literally to just look up at the microphone and say the URL out loud.
Okay, that's the fastest way.
And
Just say it.
You and goes to the site pretty quick.
Just use voice. I was about to be like, why not just use voice recognition?
So
that's so much easier.
What can you actually do with this thing? Like now that we know what it is,
that's the big caveat. That is the big problem. That is my problem with VR, AR in general. This has been going on for like, what, 10 fucking years now? VR and AR is that the use case is so fucking limited. The apps you can use are so limited. Even with gaming, like the PSVR, when I bought my PS4, I bought it with the intention of getting a PSVR. I even at launch bought like a PlayStation camera for my PS4, which is so old by now. I bought it with the intention like, okay, I know PSVR is coming. They'd already said it was coming. And like, so yeah, I'm going to get this when it first comes out. And then I hesitated because I was like, but what games are there? Like, what is there to do with this? Like, if I drop $600 on this, the price of a goddamn PlayStation itself, like, what are we doing here?
M2 chip, a computer on your face with the displays and the lenses inside and all sorts of sensors everywhere. What can this thing actually do? And I feel like the most common way to phrase that is, what is the killer app? Because we feel like we need some sort of justification to spend $3,000-$4,000 on this thing. Like applications made the iPhone what it is as we know it. Like apps made the iPad. So what is the app situation on the Vision Pro? So there are two types of apps on the Vision Pro, actually. The first is apps that are built specifically for the Vision Pro to take advantage of its awesome experiences. And there are a few of those right now. And then there are all the other apps, which basically are iPhone and iPad apps that happen to be compatible because the developer didn't opt out. And the first kind is way cooler. So these are Apple's stock apps here that come with the Vision Pro. And so these are all, of course, made just for Vision Pro. So they're going to have stuff that takes full advantage of what this thing is capable of. Apple Music is a pretty classic one. Like it has all the same functionality of any other Apple Music app, but in this super glassy frosted window and shows the colors of whatever's behind it. And you have the sort of sorting menu on the left-hand side instead of across the bottom. That's the basic layout. Same thing with the Notes app and the Settings app, very glassy, almost looking like an iPad app in the air, just rebuilt with this new material design. And then there's the media apps, so Apple TV and Disney Plus, they both come pre-installed, which they have built entire environments inside of them for watching media. And there's even a small collection of videos on the Apple TV app that are shot on a new proprietary format specifically for Vision Pro.
Of course it's proprietary.
So it drops you into a space with a full 180-degree video, and Alicia Keys walks right up to you and starts singing right to your face. It's crazy. There's also the Photos app,
that's cool.
which will let you look at like panoramic photos, for example, in this fully immersive view. So you can blow them up to full screen, and then it gives you a bit of a parallax
that's not
effect
Apple
around the
specific,
edges. So it feels
but
like
it is
you're
cool
like
looking at
into a
3D
window
pictures
of your
when
own photo
you're
and
in
looking
VR.
around. It's
Like
kind of
panoramic
incredible.
pictures
And then there's also
in
some
VR
other really
is
fun
cool.
third-party apps that I've tried that were built ahead of time. So Sky Guide, this is a good one. You can look around a real representation of the sky around you, where any of the constellations would normally be. You can look at it a little longer and it'll pop it out. You can pull it out
wasn't
of the
as
sky
cool as
to
this.
get more information about it. It's a pretty great idea.
That's
There's
very
another one
cool.
called
There's an app that I used to have years ago that did something very similar, to where you could look into, like, use your phone camera or whatever. You hold your phone up to the night sky and it would tell you constellations.
JigSpace,
That's cool. This is like an evolution of that, and that's very cool.
Use it, but basically it lets you load 3D models into the space you're in and mess around with them, take them apart, view them in actual size. And this really takes advantage of how good the placement lock is on the Vision Pro.
Is that Kick advertising on that car?
The scale of things that you don't get to see.
That's a lot of Kick advertising.
And then Keynote is another funny one. So you can, of course, go through and edit a keynote just like normal if you want to. But
That's
then
cool.
they've built this whole environment for practicing your presentation skills. So you press that and it says, oh, would you like to go to a conference room or the literal Steve Jobs theater? So you can rehearse talking to your audience with your keynote slides behind you. It is genuinely incredibly
Okay.
immersive. And there's
That
already a
is
bunch more
very
apps like this in the
gimmicky.
App Store already at launch that are specifically built for Vision Pro. So they'll take advantage of its various strengths. Now, are any of these a killer app?
No. Nothing you have
Not
said.
really. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
nothing you have
If you're
said.
looking for any one of these to be the reason why you spend like $4,000 on this headset, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Earlier I was saying that I knew this Vision Pro was going to be expensive. I remember it being expensive, but I didn't remember the exact like number. But yo, just for the headset, that is far and away the most expensive VR headset I've ever seen before. I think the HTC Vive even is only relatively speaking is
Stop
only
the
like
cap.
$1,000, I think, maybe $1,200. And then you have to buy like, well, if you want a really good VR like environment, you have to buy like extra sensors and shit like that. So you could easily start bumping up to $2,000 and $3,000, but those are add-ons, bro. Just for the headset, just for the headset is crazy. It's
I
crazy.
don't think we have that yet. But then
That's more than a whole ass. I'm talking about a whole ass top of the line bleeding edge PC. You can have some of the best shit in a whole ass PC for the price of one VR headset that doesn't even have much functionality. I mean, it's obviously very impressive technically speaking. But I mean, much functionality in like the software. You need software to go with this hardware. Otherwise, what's the point?
but
It's the
technically,
same. It's the same way I feel about like 8K TVs. 8K TVs exist for what? There's no 8K content, and you can't buy. Well, you can. You would be dumb, but you can buy an 8K TV to future proof. But it took so long for 4K to be adopted that by the time you go and get that 4K, by the time you go and get that 8K content, that 8K TV is gonna be trash. Like, all right. All right.
still compatible apps that are in the App Store. And these are going to look just like iPhone and iPad.
1000%,
Actually, there's a
Lily.
pre-installed folder on the home screen when you get this thing, literally called compatible apps. And there's a bunch of them from Apple here. They look exactly like iPad
This is
apps.
dead in
I'm
the water.
surprised actually that more
This is
of them
dead in the
aren't
water. There's no
fully
shot.
built out
There's
to
no
take
shot.
advantage of Vision Pro, but like Apple Maps is just the iPad app. And so it would be cool if there were some like fun augmented reality overlay walking
Right,
directions
sure.
type stuff, but nope, it's all
And
the
then
exact
you
same
would need
functionality
good
that you would
enough
find if you
internet
open this
to
app on
even
your iPad.
stream
And
something
you can go
like
to the App
8K.
Store and search a bunch of the names of apps you already know and love and find them by name and grab them, and they'll work the exact same way. Crazily enough, though, there are already some notable exceptions. No Netflix app for the Vision Pro, no YouTube app for the Vision Pro, no Spotify app for the Vision Pro. Apple has a kind of a contentious relationship with a lot of developers right now, especially some of the bigger ones.
So basically anything you would want to use this for. You're going to want to watch like movies, TV, and shit like that. I don't see a use case where a lot of people are going to be using this for productivity, where they're editing. They're not going to spend $4,000 so that they can edit fucking PowerPoints and simulate being in the Steve Jobs amphitheater or whatever to practice what they could have done in the mirror in their bathroom. Hasn't that been a meme for so long? I've never done it, but people say like to build confidence, talk to yourself in the mirror, blah 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 blah. No, yeah, I'll go spend $4,000 to do that instead. What are you talking about?
And so some have made the active choice to opt out. They're like, we don't want to be there. This won't be a big enough platform.
I'm not
to
sure
matter
it
to
should.
us to justify the work. So they're not.
I
there.
used
Now,
to know
totally
how
get
much it was for
also
4K,
now,
but
as a Vision
it's
Pro owner
it's
and someone
leaving
who's
me right
using
now.
it,
Honestly,
I'm like, it's kind of a bummer. I really wanted to be able to watch like a Netflix show offline, downloaded ahead of time, but you can't do that now. But at least for now, for the record, you can use the browser and anything that would work in the browser. So if you pull up Safari and you get a full screen,
Hey, that's how you know MKBHD is a real one. Marquez, my man Marquez right here, he's a real one.
the browser and anything that would work in the browser.
Caleb City right here, amazing YouTuber. I love Caleb City. I've been subbed to him forever. Caleb's hilarious.
So if you pull up Safari and you get a full screen 4K YouTube video going and locked in space or even in an environment, it looks great. It's razor sharp. Like,
Again, if there's no YouTube app, why am I paying $4,000 to do this? I can do this if it's locked in a space. I can do this right now at my computer. My PC monitor is only 1440p. It's not 4K, but I can go to the living room to watch a 4K video on a big screen. Why? What YouTube content comes in 4K? A lot. A lot of YouTube content comes in 4K. I'm pretty sure Marquez, I'm pretty sure this content is 4K. Yeah. My camera is blocking it, but you can see the very tippy top right there. This is in 4K.
Like I could totally watch YouTube videos like this, but you will definitely be missing.
We're not
like, the
watching this
features
in
of having a
4K. We're
dedicated
watching this in
app, like
1440p
offline video.
because my
Honestly,
monitor's
to
not
me,
4K.
the
But my
killer
TVs
app
are 4K. My
of the
bedroom
Vision
TV
Pro
and my living room
isn't
TV are
just
4K.
an app, it's actually the ecosystem. And we knew this was coming, but the second you log into a Vision Pro with your Apple ID, immediately it starts pulling all the services and all the stuff that you're used to from all the other Apple devices you already have. And I said this before the Vision Pro was announced. I was like, this is the most obvious strategy for Apple because there are lots of people out there who have never considered buying a VR headset that are considering only this one because
No,
they
they're
have
not.
an iPhone and this is the one that works
No, they're
with
not.
the iPhone, and
No, they're
none of
not.
the others are particularly close. So
Not
all
for
of your iMessages are
$4,000,
already
they're not.
here. All of your photos are already here and loaded up and backed up. All your notes are already at your fingertips. You already saw the Keynote app.
And those people, I think, okay, hot take. I think Marquez, I love Marquez. Don't get me wrong. Love MKB. But fucking, I think he's gotten a little out of touch with some of his toys, especially with something like this. He's talking about people considering buying a VR headset. They're considering buying maybe they would have considered that until they saw the fucking price. Yeah, you might be roped into the Apple ecosystem, and I'm not talking down on that. I'm roped into the Google ecosystem, so I'm not talking shit. But your iPhone, you might have an iPhone, you might have an iMac, you might have a fucking MacBook, you might have an iPad. Great. All of those things together, like if we're talking like a MacBook, an iPhone, and an iPad together, depending on the configuration of it, doesn't even cost as much as this one headset. That's 3 different pieces of tech. No shot. This is dead in the water.
Okay,
There's no shot.
easily, my favorite feature is connecting to your Mac, right? So anytime your Mac is in front of you and it's turned on, hit that arrow, and then there's this little icon to become my Mac's virtual display. So I click that and then pick my Mac, and it pretty much instantly, it actually blacks out the display of my Mac.
Bro,
and then
with
turns
import
that
cost,
display
could you
into
imagine
a
how much this is
4K
going to cost, Shug, for
inside
like
of
your
the
country?
headset. So now my keyboard and trackpad still work. Even if it is a desktop, the keyboard and the trackpad still control everything, and you can continue using it just like a normal computer, but with the ability to make your new 4K monitor as big or as small or close or far away as you want, which is super sick. And then the bonus
Yeah, that's
is
cool.
you can still open up and
Or
place
I could just buy 3
other
monitors.
Vision Pro apps
Just buy
around
3
your Mac
monitors.
computer. So like you can have your Mac in the middle here, and maybe you're editing or doing some work.
How
on the
much is
Mac
even
app,
the
and then
Apple
you have
monitor?
a Safari window or messages or whatever else you want right next to it.
I know it was
and then
crazy
your
expensive,
keyboard
their
and trackpad
XDR monitor.
can move
How much is their
seamlessly
monitor?
between them all to control all of them. This to me, as a Mac user, the ease of use for setup to make this happen, this feels like the biggest game changer, like the most compelling, futuristic feeling use of this headset to me. especially on a plane.
Over
Oh my God, I can't tell you how many times
$8,000 in
I've
New
had an awkward
Zealand?
conversation
No
because like I'm
shot.
editing a video
No
on the
shot.
plane, the person next to me sees I'm
Am I
editing a video
saying
of
nobody
myself,
will
and it's
buy
kind of
this?
weird and
Absolutely
hard to
not. There
explain.
will be
But
people who buy
I'm
this
picturing
for
putting the
sure.
headset on, the
This will
display
not
blacks
get. This
out,
will not
but now I
generate
can do
mass
all the editing
adoption.
I want,
There's no
and I
way.
can make the screen as big as I want. So I've really enjoyed using that feature. Again, the biggest challenge though is still remembering to look exactly at the thing you want to control. So aside from typing on the real keyboard on whatever window is open, if you want to control something, you have to be looking at it. Again, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you try it, you'll see what I mean. And then also, odd
The
limitation,
Vision Pro, is it
one
out?
monitor only from the
I
Mac.
thought this
one
was
virtual
embargo.
monitor only at
That's
a
what I
time.
thought.
So if you usually run like a dual display setup like I do for Final Cut Pro, big preview on one side, timeline on the other side, you can't do that. You have to use the big one monitor version of your setup. All right, so you might have realized I've left one thing out this whole time. One thing, you could call it one more thing. Sure, it's one more huge, crazy thing, but it's kind of the defining characteristic of this product, and that is personas. So in all the advertising you've seen of Vision Pro, there's these eyes on the outside of the headset.
This
that
is what I
looks
was
like
talking.
they're
This
kind
is
of in like a pass-through, like
this is the advertisement. This is what I mentioned at the beginning when we first started watching. This is they have a whole ass screen on the outside to simulate like you're just looking through this.
in
I
a
want to see how
dark
this looks.
astronaut helmet type of thing. Easily the most memed, most unique aspect of this headset, right? It's the only headset with an outward display.
Like that's a cool feature. Don't get me wrong. That's a cool feature. I want to see how it looks in practice.
And I mean, it's very, very prominent in those videos. But in real life, as you've started to see from some of my footage, it is very different. And I think I figured
Wait,
out
what
why.
footage? I haven't
So
noticed
first
it.
of all, it's not actually see-through, right? There's a whole bunch of computer in between me and you right now. So the eyes aren't on the outside. It's a representation of my eyes based on what all the sensors on the inside are seeing. It's reconstructing it on the outside. So those sensors are tracking at 90 frames per second, and
Okay.
they give you Optic ID, which is it's how you log into the headset and keep things secure. It's basically the same as Face ID or Touch ID. It's just looking at and identifying your eyes. And it also powers the one beta feature of this headset, which is personas, which is it's the most impressive and weirdest thing about this headset at the same time. I'm calling it right now. So the purpose of the eyes on the outside is really not
Oh,
for
is
you,
that
the
what
wearer of
that's
the headset.
supposed to
In fact, you'll
be?
never see it, but it's for the people around you. So when you're in a pass-through mode, your eyes will
Oh.
shine through to indicate that you wearing the headset can see the person
Oh.
outside. So that right there is already pretty unique. But then when you're in something immersive and you can't see what's around you, it covers up your eyes with this sort of like a blue,
that's cool.
purple glowing animation. So that intuitively makes sense. You can see the eyes when they
Yeah.
can see you. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
see the
yeah.
eyes when they can't see you. But
That makes
crazily enough,
sense.
there's also a feature where if you have someone who's outside the headset looking at you, talking to you, and you are in an immersion, but you want to talk to them through that, they will kind of appear through the fog of whatever immersive environment you're in. So you just start talking and looking in their direction. It detects that and sort of parts a little bit of a fog, and that person's eyes will show through the fog. It's pretty decent. It basically only shows one
Oh.
person at a time. And when
That's
this is
actually a
happening on
very
the
cool
outside of the
feature.
headset, it shows a little
That's
bit
awesome.
of your eyes poking through the purple and blue glow. It's as you can
The
see,
eyes thing
it's all
looks
working,
stupid.
but also I
That
think
looks awful.
it looks nothing like the eyes from the ad. So in an effort to make the
Yeah.
eyes as presentable as
It looks
possible,
nothing like what
two
they're
things.
advertising.
First of all, this screen is actually behind a lenticular film, which I didn't even realize that from the initial media they've published. But if you've ever heard of that, it's sort of what gives it like this 3D depth. You might have seen this on other like holographic.
Hey, what's
displays
up,
and
Lala?
stuff. But the
Welcome
point
in,
of
welcome
that
in, my
is
guy.
to make the eyes appear to be
How's your Thursday
sunken
going, my
into
guy?
the display,
What's up?
like on your actual face, instead of like glued to the front of the headset, which would look a little more weird. But then two, to represent your actual eyes, they've built in a way to scan in and create a digital representation of your face, which is called your persona. And it looks like this. So to get those eyes on the outside of the Vision Pro
Okay.
headset, you have to do something called registering your persona. This is
Lala,
how
I'm
it
actually in the
creates the
same vein
digital
as you
version
right
of
now.
you that includes your eyes
Kinda in
that will
that
show up
vibe
here.
right now.
So
But streaming
let's
always
do that
makes me
now.
feel better.
It's
It
actually kind
always
of a
makes
cool
me feel
process. So
good.
I'm gonna put it
And I
on,
hope,
and
I don't
hopefully
know,
the
maybe
screen
hanging
recording
out with
works so you
us
can
could
see
make you
exactly
feel
what I'm
better.
doing.
Hopefully.
I'll hit the digital crown. I'm gonna
We're
go to
learning
settings. And you can do this
about
when
the
you first set
Vision
it up,
Pro.
but I'm going to persona,
That just came
and I'm
out, I
gonna hit
guess.
get
I didn't know it
started.
came out. I thought this
So
was
let's
just
go
like
find my
reviews.
hands real quick. Captures. This is capturing detail from the front of the headset of the hands in front of me. Once it's done with that,
Your persona, you'll remove Apple Vision Pro.
it's gonna ask me to take it off. So this is
When
how
you're
it
ready,
goes.
hold Apple Vision Pro at eye level.
Oh,
Keep your arms and shoulders relaxed. Align your entire face within the frame.
My
those
face
speakers
shows up
sound
with Face
decent.
ID.
Slowly turn your head to the right. Now slowly turn your head to the left. Now tilt your head up.
Okay, so just standard facial
Then
recognition.
tilt your
Okay.
head down. Next, let's capture your facial
I haven't,
expressions.
Lala. I
Smile
haven't.
with your mouth closed. Then make a big
I
smile
am
with your
I am a
teeth
little
showing.
interested in checking it out.
Now
though.
raise your eyebrows.
I've also never seen
Close
either
your eyes
Ted
for a
movie.
moment. Capture complete.
I think I've told that story
Put
on stream
Vision Pro
before.
back on to continue.
I will do that. So now I have a menu that says creating persona. And it says it's in beta, and now
Oh,
there's my persona right
that's weird
there.
looking.
Kind of uncanny. The
Yeah,
hair's a little bit different, but the face,
that makes me very. I don't know.
wow. Okay.
That
So there's
makes me
different lighting.
uncomfortable.
You can choose it to always be
Yeah.
in studio lighting and always be in contour lighting. I'll just do
That's
that
weird.
natural and hit next. You can change the color temperature.
He's in
of
Polar
your skin
Express.
Tone. Cool to warm. I think I'm around there. Brightness, darkness. I think I'm around there, near the middle. Next. And then I can add glasses. So if I typically have glasses, which obviously I wouldn't be able to wear in the Vision Pro, you can still look like you have glasses anytime you're on that FaceTime call. And then next, save. And that's it. So I think now you should see my eyes.
That looks awful. That looks absolutely
Maybe.
terrible.
And that's the thing. It barely shows up. You can barely
Yeah.
see my eyes when I'm wearing the headset. Now, I've tried a couple other scans subsequently, so I've tried different lighting conditions.
Bro, you could save so much money on this device by just getting rid of that outside screen. It's not necessary. Add some just LEDs, some soft LEDs to represent when you're in full VR mode or not. You don't need a screen for this eye thing. That would save
I've
so
tried
much money on
different
the
backgrounds, simple
$4,000
backgrounds,
price
tried different
tag.
shirts and things like that. It doesn't really ever appear any brighter. I think if you have a darker skin tone like me, just don't expect the eyes to show up very brightly on the outside of the headset. It's pretty subtle. Even when it does show up,
No, it's not
it's a little
transparent
weird looking. The
at
eyes are
all.
a
It's
little
it's an
too far
LCD
apart
screen.
Sometimes they're a little dim. You see like one eye at a time. It's kind of weird. But that persona though, phew, that is some pretty interesting stuff. It's crazy that this is actually a real thing being shipped. Like first Meta started doing it, now Apple's doing this. This is again, it's technically in beta, so I don't know. There's room for improvement, but it still works.
Yeah, it
but as
should.
of right now, I
That's
feel
that's
like
how
this
it always
is
works.
both incredibly impressive and slightly unsettling. Like it's
That's what
very impressive.
That's
that
what I was
this
just saying. It's
thing,
very
this headset
unsettling.
I'm wearing on my
It's
face is
something
tracking
weird. It feels weird.
every-
I don't
all
like
these
it.
little micro expressions and little movements for my eyes and my cheeks and my mouth and everything. But
Like
at
that
the
tongue
same
animation,
time,
that's
it's
not his
just
actual tongue. I mean, it
not
looks like a
quite
weird
human. It's
AI
right at the edge of
abomination.
the uncanny valley of I'm not looking at a person. So, yeah. But the crazy part is you can now use this persona as your camera feed for any apps in Vision Pro that require a front-facing camera, like FaceTime. And so I've been using FaceTime a few times in the Vision Pro, and it is, technically speaking, incredible. So I've made a few FaceTime calls in the past few days with some fellow reviewers who you'll probably recognize from their personas, who are also testing the Vision Pro. And universally,
I don't
once we all
recognize
got
them.
past the shock of, oh my God, it's you. It looks like
Oh,
a digital version of
iJustine.
you. This is
Of
crazy.
course.
I've never seen anything like this before.
Of
Once we
course,
got
iJustine
past
has
that,
one.
there is a ton happening here. So you can see the FaceTime windows literally appear
that's so
as just that. They're
weird
just like
looking.
glassy windows floating in space with people looking through them. And then the angle that you look into the window is going to match the angle that they see you looking at them. Meaning, if we're all in Vision Pros on this call, unlikely, but hear me out. If we're all in Vision Pros,
Unlikely,
and
but
you've got
you
a
know.
bunch of people on this FaceTime call. So there's somebody to the left and somebody to the right. If I look to the person and make eye contact with the person to the right, the person to the left sees like the side of my head because I'm looking at somebody else.
Oh, that's kind of
That's
cool.
already pretty cool. And then the same
Yeah,
thing is
that's
true
cool.
for hand gestures. So we tried this out. Turns out you can reach out and make hand gestures that are tracked by the cameras in this bubble in front of you, and they show up at the correct angle towards the person that you're gesturing at. So not towards everybody else on the call. Oh, wait. That's okay. Good test. So wait,
Oh,
Justine,
that's
do you see this?
nifty.
Yes.
And
I
Brian,
don't
do
see
you-
that. I don't see that, Marquez.
Now wait. So now, Brian, do you see
Now,
this?
now I can see that, Marquez.
And then on
Oh,
top
that's
of that,
cool,
Spatial audio
actually.
here is incredibly well developed. So again, you're on the call. The voice of the person to the right comes from the right side. The voice of the person to the left comes from the left. But also, you can just pick up and move the window around, and that angle will match where the people are in the room and where their sound and video comes from. If I put you on the other side of the room, it sounds like they're further away. And if I turn up the environment and bring them into like the moon or some other 3D space, it actually sounds much more like I'm in a gigantic space with no echo.
Oh, okay.
Versus in the actual
That's kinda
room.
cool.
It's all very subtle but very well considered. So once you're in this a while, you start to notice all these little smaller things. Again, it's not quite human-like. It's not like looking at a video feed of a human face, but it is still like it has a lot of like, this would be the best avatar
I think
anyone's
this
ever
is
made
the
in
most
2K. Like, no
baffling
one's ever done a
feature
2K
right
face
now.
scan and had it look this good, but it's still
This
not
is.
as good as
I
like, a perfect
definitely
reality.
don't
It's a-
like this.
You've heard the uncanny valley thing before. I think the number one weakness for the avatars or the personas
just
that
looks
I've
so
seen is hair.
strange.
So basically,
I don't
everyone
know.
I've talked to has
Like,
like, a
this right here,
frozen
I
lump of
don't
hair
like this.
instead of
I
flowing
don't know.
realistic hair. And
Maybe
that's true about all
maybe this
flowing
is my
things. Like, however
transition
your
to
hair
becoming a
was
fucking
when you did
boomer.
the scan, it's frozen that way.
I don't like
And
this.
so
I
is
don't
any
like this
necklace
at
you're
all.
wearing, whether it's crooked or not. Or I guess technically also any makeup you had on or however you looked when you did the scan. Maybe that could be a good thing. Maybe you did a scan when you were looking all dolled up and then you get on a 7 a.m. call and you still look
Get with the
perfect, even though you
times.
look like you
Okay,
just
all
woke
right,
up in real life.
fine.
So I guess there's that too. But anyway, all that is to say, FaceTime. FaceTime is the most well thought out, like most futuristic Vision Pro experience. It just is. So I'll end this video with this. Now you know what it's like to use and operate the Vision Pro. But there's
Yeah.
still a lot more to consider when actually considering if you should buy and own this thing from the
The answer is no. No, you should not buy this thing. Co. What's up, girly? Welcome in, welcome in. How you doing? We're learning about the new Apple Vision Pro, the new Apple VR headset. It
use
just came out
cases to
apparently.
the things that work well and don't work well, the philosophy behind it, the prices, all of that stuff. That's what's going to be for
Coco,
my
do you
full
have an
review.
iPhone?
Like, there are parts of this thing that are
Do you have an iPad? Do you have
absolutely
a
amazing, unparalleled,
MacBook?
best I've ever seen. But the reason it's so
Co.
interesting is because it's actually a young
The
category.
Super's not
Like, we're
here.
so
Somebody had
used
to do it.
This slow, boring iteration in mature categories like
Oh, you don't have
smartphones and
Apple products,
laptops, and
Coco?
you always see the comments talking about how tech is so boring. But now they're actually jumping into something risky, and it's actually fun. And there is downfalls and flaws.
This
and
is
it's fun
risky.
to actually weigh the pros and cons.
Just
so I'll
an
be
iPhone?
expanding on all these way more in the full review, but I'll leave you with this. I've got my upsides and downsides. To
Okay,
Vision Pro.
let's
It's been a
hear.
week. Upsides,
hear it.
some of the stuff that's the best I've ever seen in a headset: immersion, placement in space, eye tracking and hand control,
Those are all good,
pass
yeah.
through, ecosystem, and spatial audio. And the downsides, weight and comfort, the eyes on the outside, app selection right now,
Yep.
battery life, and price. So the full review.
Yeah, the price is a big
Definitely get
one at
subscribed to be among the
$4,000
first to see
fucking
that when it
dollars
drops.
is insane.
Either way, till the next one, thanks for watching. Catch you later. Peace.
All right, that was a wild one. That was a little crazy, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not gonna reiterate what I was already saying about it along the way. He summarized it great at the end. This thing is dead in the water. This thing is not gonna pop off. You're like, you regular ass person like you and me, we're probably not gonna see people using these things like at all. I already don't see many people using VR headsets in general at all any fucking way. Like, I know people with VR headsets. I have a VR headset, like I have a cheaper VR headset. Like, I do know people with VR headsets, but they're very few and far between. Fine, I won't buy this. Shut the fuck up, Rumble. It's a shitty business practice from Apple that makes me not want to support them at all. I mean, most businesses have really shitty business practices. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. That's just not a thing, unfortunately.